Voldemort had a mother. That sentence feels wrong, somehow. He arrives in the story fully formed. The pale face, the red eyes, the thing that isn't quite a man anymore. It's easy to forget he was ever carried by anyone. But he was, and she has a name and a story, and if you've only seen the films, you have never heard either of them. The movies show you the orphanage where he grew up. They never tell you who left him there, or why. Her name was Merope Gaunt. She was probably about 20 when she died, and of everyone in these books, I'm not sure anyone had less than she did. The Gaunts were an old wizarding family, very old. They were the last living descendants of Salazar Slytherin himself, one of the 4 founders of Hogwarts. That's the kind of bloodline other pureblood families would kill for. And by the time Merope was born, they had nothing. Generations of marrying only their own kind and spending nothing wisely had left them with a filthy little shack in a dip in the woods near a village called Little Hangleton. Rubbish outside, nettles up to the windows, a dead snake nailed to the door. Inside were 3 people: her father, Marvolo, her brother, Morfin, and Merope. The 2 men were violent, not in some distant, implied way. The books show it to you. Her father screams at her, calls her filthy names, tells her she's useless. When she drops a pot, he goes for her throat. Her brother torments her for sport, and they both do it while insisting they're better than everyone else in the world because of the blood in their veins. She did all the work. She was described as plain, with a heavy, dull face and eyes that pointed in slightly different directions. She kept her head down and stayed silent. Here's the detail that tells you how bad it was. Merope was a witch. She had magic. But when her father and brother were in the room, it barely worked. She could hardly perform the simplest spell. Living in fear had pressed her magic down so far inside her that she couldn't reach it. Think about what that means. Not that she was weak, that she'd been made small enough for long enough that the one thing that made her special stopped answering when she called. And then there was the man on the road. His name was Tom Riddle. He lived in the big house on the hill above the village. Handsome, rich, the local gentleman. He rode past the Gaunt's shack sometimes with the girl he was courting, and they would laugh at the state of it. Merope watched him through the window. That's all it was for years. A girl in a filthy house, looking at a man who didn't know she existed. He was everything she wasn't. Clean, admired, welcome anywhere, and she loved him the way you love something you're certain you'll never have. Her brother noticed her staring, and one day Morfin attacked Tom Riddle on the road with a jinx, covered him in hives, laughing about it afterwards. So the ministry sent someone to the house, and that visit is where everything came apart. While the official was there, her father found out about her feelings for the muggle on the hill, and he flew into a rage and started choking her right there in front of the man from the ministry. Marvolo had just discovered that his daughter, heir to Slytherin's blood, was in love with Tom Riddle, a muggle. The exact kind of person the Gaunts believed they were better than. To him, that was a betrayal of everything they were. When the official stepped in to save her, both Gaunt men turned on him and attacked him too, and he had to flee the house. He came back with reinforcements to make the arrests. They fought again and lost. Morfin got 3 years in Azkaban. Marvolo got 6 months. And for the first time in her life, Merope Gaunt was alone in that house. Something happened in those months. Her magic came back. With no one screaming at her, no one to flinch from, whatever had been sitting on her started to lift. She could do things again. She had a house to herself and nobody's permission to ask for. And she used it on the man on the road. She gave him a love potion, not a spell that forces someone to obey. Something quieter and, in a way, sadder. A potion that makes a person feel a powerful, obsessive infatuation. He drank it, and he wanted her. And a few months later, Tom Riddle and Merope Gaunt ran away together and got married, and the whole village was scandalized. The young gentleman from the big house and the strange girl from the shack in the woods. It's easy to say she did a terrible thing. She did. Taking someone's choice from them is one of the ugliest things you can do to a person. But look at what she was working with. Nobody had ever been kind to her. Nobody had ever chosen her. Not her father, not her brother, not one person in that village. She was around 19 or 20 years old, and she had never once been loved, and she found a way to be, and she took it. They lived in London, and she got pregnant, and then Merope did the thing that breaks this story open. She stopped giving him the potion. She didn't have to. She could have kept him under it for the rest of his life. Instead, she let it go. Maybe she thought that after all those months together, he'd grown to love her for real. Maybe she thought the baby would be enough. Maybe she simply couldn't stand being loved by a man who wasn't really there. Whatever it was she was hoping. That's what the decision means. She wanted to be chosen properly by someone who knew what he was choosing. He woke up and he left. He didn't just leave her. He went back to the village and told people he'd been tricked. He went home to the big house on the hill and got on with his life. He never came for his son. Never met him. Never knew him. The next time Tom Riddle and his boy were in the same room years later, the boy had come to kill him. So now picture her, a pregnant girl, alone in London in the winter, with no money, no family, no friends, and no home to go back to. Her father died not long after he got out of Azkaban, still refusing to forgive her. Her brother was in prison. Everyone she had ever known was gone or hated her. And she had one thing left. Around her neck was a heavy gold locket with a serpent's S on the front. It had belonged to Salazar Slytherin. It had been passed down her family for something like 1,000 years. The last proof that she came from somebody. She walked into a shop in Nocturne Alley and sold it to a man named Caractacus Burke. He gave her 10 galleons. It was worth a fortune. He knew it. He said so cheerfully years later, still pleased with himself. He'd never seen a better bargain. She was starving and about to give birth, and he looked at a priceless heirloom and a desperate girl and paid her almost nothing because she was in no state to argue. That locket goes on to become one of the pieces of Voldemort's soul, a Horcrux. His mother sold it for the price of a few meals, and it didn't even save her. Here's the part that Harry can't get past when he first hears it. She was a witch. She had a wand. She could have got herself food. She could have got herself warm. She could have found the wizarding world. There were people out there who would have helped a young mother, and she knew how to reach them. She didn't. She wouldn't lift a wand, even to save her own life. When Harry hears this, he gets angry. He says she had a choice, unlike his own mother, who died with no way out at all, and Dumbledore doesn't argue with the facts. He just asks Harry not to judge her too harshly. She was so worn down by so many years of suffering, he says, that she no longer had his mother's strength to live. She had run out. There was nothing left in her to fight with. That's not weakness. That's a person who had been hurt for so long that when the last hope went, there was nothing underneath it. On the last night of the year, a girl no one recognized climbed the steps of a Muggle orphanage in London and asked for help. The woman who ran it said she looked half dead already and that it was a bitter snowy night. They took her in, she gave birth, and she lived just long enough to do two things. She named her son Tom after his father, Marvolo after her own, Tom Marvolo Riddle. She was still trying at the very end to belong to the two men who'd thrown her away, and she said she hoped he would look like his father. Then she died within the hour. She never told them who the father was, or where he lived, or that there was a whole other world her son belonged to. She was buried by strangers who didn't know her name meant anything. Her son grew up a few miles from a father who was alive, wealthy, and never coming, and a world where he was the heir of Slytherin, and nobody told him either thing until he found out for himself. When Voldemort finally learned about his mother, he drew one conclusion. She was weak. He decided that no true witch would have died like that she must have been something less. It's part of why he hated the name Riddle so much, and why he became obsessed with the idea that death is for lesser people. His mother let go of life, so he built his whole existence around never letting go of it. He split his soul into pieces so that nothing could ever take him the way despair took her. The most feared wizard in the world spent his life running from a death that happened in an orphanage on New Year's Eve to a girl who was 20 years old and had nobody. And the locket, her locket, the one thing she owned, sold for 10 galleons, became one of the pieces he hid himself inside. There's one question the books leave open here, and it's a big one. Would he have been different if she'd lived? Not saved, necessarily. Not good, but different. A boy raised by a mother who loved him. Even a poor, frightened, damaged mother. Instead of a boy raised in a room by himself in a place where nobody came at Christmas. He'd have known he was a wizard. He'd have known where he came from. Someone would have been on his side. Dumbledore comes close to saying that love was the thing missing from him. The hole nothing ever filled. What do you think? Was he always going to become that? Or did it start the night she stopped fighting? I don't think there's a right answer, but I'd like to hear yours. Merope Gaunt is in the story for about 20 pages, and then she's gone. Nobody mourns her. Not her father, not her brother, not the man she married, not the son she died giving life to. There's no grave anyone visits. Nobody in the whole series ever says her name with any tenderness in it. She was hurt her entire life by people who were supposed to love her. She took the only chance at happiness she could see in the worst possible way. She gave it up because she wanted the real thing, and it killed her. The very first victim in the story of Lord Voldemort was his mother.